Hello and welcome to this very special virtual edition of the Lakshminarayana Global Music Festival. We're so excited to be celebrating 30 years of the festival with you, and if all had gone according to plan, we would have been having this conversation in person. The year 2020 had brought many unexpected and sometimes exciting things to us, and we hope that 2021 is a year that brings everyone great joy and wonderful, exciting things. For the virtual edition of the festival, we have an amazing lineup of artists that we're very proud to present and some never-before-seen collaborations. The first performance we have scheduled for you is a very special premiere of an orchestral composition by my father, Dr. L Subramaniam, and it's called the Jupiter Symphony. The Jupiter Symphony is performed by the European Recording Symphony Orchestra, conducted by Christo Pavlov, featuring Kavita Krishnamurti Subramaniam, and the world premiere begins now. That was the world premiere of the Jupiter Symphony, featuring Kavita Krishnamurti Subramaniam, and the wonderful European Recording Symphony Orchestra, conducted by Christo Pavlov. That composition was a fitting tribute to Professor V. Lakshminarayana, the man for whom this entire festival is dedicated, my grandfather and the father of Dr. L Subramaniam. Professor V. Lakshminarayana was a visionary in his time, and it was his dream and desire to bring the Indian violin on the global stage as a solo instrument. Through the decades, we've aimed through the festival and other initiatives like the LGCE to bring Professor V. Lakshminarayana's dreams to reality. The next performance, something that we're very excited about, is the first ever collaboration between Dr. L Subramaniam and the legend John Mclaughlin. as Exploration, a special tribute to Professor V. Lakshminarayana. It's also part of a series of other compositions which you will be hearing as this festival progresses. To end today's performances, we'd like to share some very special archival footage which we've never before released. This is an interview by Dr. L Subramaniam of Lord Yehudi Menuhin. Lord Yehudi Menuhin, as you all know, was a great friend of India, but he was also the first patron of the Lakshminarayana Global Music Festival and the first recipient of the Lakshminarayana International Award. Dr. Subramaniam and Yehudi Menuhin's relationships went back decades. They were friends and collaborators on multiple occasions, and this interview shows a sneak peek into the kind of camaraderie that they shared. Enjoy.
My dear Lord Menuhin, thank you very much for coming to India for the 50th year of India's independence. Thanks for accepting the invitation to attend the Lakshminarayana Global Music Festival and receive the first international Lakshminarayana Award, which was instituted by Vijay Global Arts. And I'm ever great thankful to you for that.
You shouldn't thank me. I thank you for inviting me.
Yes, my pleasure. And the two questions I was interested in regarding music. One is we have this broad, when you divide the music broadly, this one is a system which has an improvisational section as a major influence in many cultures. And there's another section of, another division of music where more is written and very little, practically nothing to some extent is improvised. What do you think of these two different systems are heading towards?
Like all other contrasts that look as if they are in opposition, they're really complementary and they are serving each other. In Western music, it's not as if there's no improvisation at all. When there's none at all, then it's as dull as when you hear beginners in Indian music playing only formula. You know, the formula they
Yes, exactly.
But actually, music has to be something that moves you, that establishes some emotional and intellectual, some contact between the audience, the listener, and the player. And to do that, it has to belong to the moment. It cannot be a repetition. You cannot sort of play music as if you read the same sentence for 40 times, and, because that wouldn't mean anything. So that's why even in Western music, which is written for the most part, not always, but I try to bring the element of newness, of seeing something as if you had never seen it before, of following the composer's intention as you can imagine it, not as if it's a ready-made object, you know. It's because as soon as people have a name for a thing, they think they know it.
They know
it. And the name only stands for a means to identify or recognize what is behind. And that is the job of a sculptor, a painter, a musician who interprets, to convey what it is that makes that particular piece of music or that particular person a particular person. And therefore, the element of structure is also in Indian music, because when it comes out of the mind, it doesn't have to be written on paper. If you did, you'd write it out on paper, if you had to, but it's something totally different. You have the structure, and it's a very definite structure. In even a very long piece, it has its periods when each person has his solo, and others when they play together, and the overall structure may be gaining speed towards the end. I mean, it has a structure, and of course the alap, the beginning, just the searching of the notes. I find that a marvelous time, marvelous period, when you're beginning to create the first notes of a scale, of a raga, and you search as if you were in another landscape, looking at each step and wondering how it relates to the last step and where it's going to take you. It's a wonderful period, and then gradually the rhythm joins in, which is actually, the same structure as the flamenco song. They also begin before the rhythm. Before the rhythm, they sing out and cry out, and then the rhythm comes in and becomes often frenetic. But so that we have certain things in common, and in the Western tradition, as we said the other day, in the 14th, 15th, 16th century, and later, the harpsichord player had to improvise the figured bass and also the ornamentation. So,
do they still do it?
Yes,
still do it.
Oh, yes.
So in the tradition, the improvisation is taught.
Especially now that the musicologists have explored the other world, which for a time the Romantic world had ignored, because the Romantic music has taken over. It's the first music that appeals to our Asian friends in Japan and China and so on, because those people want to play music that will make other people cry, Yeah. And of course, they've also got a lot of their music from Russia, because during all the Soviet period, the influence of the Russians and their music was quite great in China too. Their violin teachers were Russian, and all the way to Shanghai, where there were quite a few Russians, also some living in sort of exile too. Yeah. And between the general Romantic tradition and the Russians, the Asians have found in our music, Western music, a means of talking about themselves, which they never had before. So that explains. But the Baroque music which precedes it, which is far more subtle, it's very, very delicate, and it isn't music that really is played for big audiences. That demands of the harpsichord player his improvisation, and today the two instruments, particularly the organ is still taught in a way that the disciple, the young organist, must be able to improvise. He has to just simply know, must be able to improvise the fugue and so on. In France, where organ playing is very highly developed, that is part of the
teaching improvisation.
Part of the formation.
But is there any school or anywhere where, among other instrumentalists like oboe, violin, flute, learning strict Western classical music, are they interested in improvisation?
Yes,
are they taught?
Yes, we do it at my school, and now there are beginning to be a few where they deliberately bring in improvisation, which I think is very, very important. It gives people back their identity. Really, that's what it does. People who have had to become one cog in a machine and go every day to the same office and work in the same factory and forget that they have an identity of their own. In the schools now, where they teach children to do what they imagine, they've already, in painting, they've done it quite a lot, but in music, still very little. But the child acquires a kind of not only an identity, but it can navigate for itself. As it's the difference between walking in the forest and getting lost, and walking in the forest and knowing where you're going.
You mentioned about Russian violinists and traditions. I know you have worked with Mr. David Oistrakh.
Yes.
One of the greatest
He was one of the greatest musicians. He was also such a wonderful human being. He was my closest colleague. And I loved him dearly as well.
Have you ever done anything together with other Jasha Heifetz?
I've never played with Jasha Heifetz. I admired him when I was a little boy. He was about 8 or 9 years older than I. And I heard him at his first concert in America, in San Francisco, because he didn't come across the Atlantic. He came the other way from Russia, from sort of across the Pacific.
And you know, you lived in Los Angeles and died in Los Angeles.
Yes, that's right.
The coming to the different traditions of violin, you have presented world violins and different violin traditions.
Yes.
How many different traditions you have come across in violin style of violin play?
Well, there is the Indian.
Of course, yeah.
There's the gypsy up to a point. There is what? Then a different.
You had the jazz violin.
Jazz violins. And then different violins actually play different ways, like the bacon fiddle.
One violinist was, I still remember, you showed me, come and see what he's doing. So he was keeping the violin upside down in his, almost in his, over the knee and playing like this.
Yes. I don't remember what that was called.
It was somewhere from Middle East.
Of course, you have you have the Scottish fiddler.
Scottish. Irish.
Scottish, Irish, the hardanger, which is the
Norwegian folk violin.
Yes. The hardanger is a fiddle that's different from the others because it has extra strings.
Sympathetic strings.
Sympathetic strings.
And also there's the Swedish, recently I met, they are also in here, they'll be performing. They have something called nickel harp, which is...
The Irish?
No, the Swedish.
The Swedish,
They call it folk violin, but it's called nickel harp, where also they have the sympathetic strings. And it is keyed. It was very interesting too, and they were trying to play Bach for me in that Bach arrangement, but it is a folk instrument.
Yes.
Pretty heavy. And,
very interesting. There are these, and of course, almost every tribe I know in Africa has some sort of a stringed instrument. In Senegal, I saw a little violin with an armadillo back, the anteaters, and 4 strings, pegs, and a bow, and the fellow who played it was very great virtuosity. I couldn't do anything with it.
Yeah, but you have done everything on the violin in any case. Also the other, we have remembered the concert in UN, what we did for 40th year.
Yes.
That was, you arrived that day, we were in that rehearsing at the top of the Indian Council's thing.
That's right.
Then later on it was recorded in Los Angeles.
When we recorded.
Yes. Once again, thank you very much.
Well, I thank you. And
very, very kind of you to
look
come
forward
here.
to our concert, where I shall be, unfortunately, only as an auditor,
this time. But you have to come back and give me a schedule another time, and we should do something together.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed the first installment of the Lakshminarayana Global Music Festival 2021. I know we enjoyed putting together these curated performances and interview. Please stay with us on this journey, attend the next interviews, concerts, and we look forward to your support and participation. As always, enjoy the music.